the human body. You're made of water, carbon, calcium, iron, and a bunch of other basic chemicals. If someone went to a store and bought all of those ingredients separately, it would cost them around $152,000. That's your price tag as raw materials. But obviously, you're not raw materials. You're already built. And once you're walking around with working organs inside you, the numbers change completely. A heart is worth about $1 million. A liver, around $550,000. Each kidney, about $200,000. Add it all up, and your body is carrying roughly $45 million worth of parts. You walk past people every day without realizing that every single one of them is a $45 million machine. The government has its own number too. When they decide whether a safety rule is worth the money, they put the value of one human life at $14.2 million. If the rule saves enough lives to justify that cost, it gets approved. If it doesn't, it gets rejected. That's how decisions about your safety are actually made, with a calculator. The Mona Lisa. In 1503, a rich merchant in Italy asked a painter to make a portrait of his wife. The painter said yes, started working on it, and then just never finished. He kept it with him for years, adjusting small details here and there, and eventually sold it to the King of France not long before he died. That painter was Leonardo da Vinci. The painting ended up in a museum in Paris, where it hung on a wall with hundreds of other old paintings. Nobody paid much attention to it. It was just another portrait. Then, in 1911, a museum worker hid inside the building overnight, took the painting off the wall, tucked it under his coat, and walked out the front door. The theft made headlines around the world. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know about this painting. When it was found 2 years later, it became the most famous artwork on the planet, not because of how it was painted, because it was stolen. Today, this piece of wood, about 30 inches tall, covered in a thin layer of colored oil, is valued at over $1 billion. Most of that value comes from the story around it, not the paint on it. The Cullinan Diamond. In 1905, a mine manager in South Africa was taking an evening walk through the mine when something in the wall caught his eye. It was reflecting light in a way rocks don't normally reflect. He pulled it out with a pocket knife. It was a diamond. The largest diamond ever found on Earth. Over 3,000 carats. Completely colorless. Zero imperfections. The most chemically perfect stone the planet has ever produced. It was so large that when people first saw it, many assumed it was fake. Nobody believed a diamond that size could exist naturally. It was eventually shipped to England in a regular postal box to be cut into smaller stones. The largest pieces ended up in the British Crown Jewels, where they still sit today. The total estimated value of all the stones cut from this single rock is around $2 billion. The mine manager who spotted it, just casually sticking out of a wall during an evening walk, received a bonus of about $10,000. The Louisiana Purchase. In 1803, the United States sent people to France with $10 million. They wanted to buy a small port city called New Orleans because they needed it for trade. Napoleon was running France at the time, and he was dealing with expensive wars and a failed attempt to control Haiti. He needed money. So instead of just selling the port, he offered the entire middle section of North America, over 800,000 square miles of land, for $15 million. The Americans said yes before he could change his mind. The deal doubled the size of the United States overnight. The price worked out to about 4 cents per acre. That same land today is worth thousands of dollars per acre. It is considered the greatest real estate deal in human history. An entire section of a continent, sold because one man was running low on war money. The International Space Station. It cost $150 billion to build. That makes it the most expensive single object ever created by humans. But the cost is honestly the least interesting part. The station was built by 15 different countries working together. Parts were made in different corners of the world, and they had to fit together perfectly when assembled 250 miles above the Earth, in a place where temperatures swing from 250 degrees to negative 250 degrees. A place where a loose bolt travels at 17,000 miles per hour and can punch through metal like a bullet. The station orbits Earth once every 90 minutes. The astronauts inside see 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets every single day, and it has been continuously occupied since the year 2000. Someone has been living in space, without a single day's break, for over 25 years. The pyramids showed what one civilization could build on its own. The International Space Station showed what all of them could build together. World War II. The most expensive event in human history. And it's not close. The total military spending across all countries involved is estimated at around $25 trillion in today's money, but that number only covers the cost of fighting. It doesn't include the cities that were leveled, the economies that collapsed, the farmland that was destroyed, the factories that were bombed to dust, or the roads and bridges that took decades to rebuild. The true total cost has never been calculated because the damage was too widespread to measure. Every major country involved dedicated most of its economy to the war. The United States alone was spending 40% of everything it earned as a country on the military. By the end, 70 million people were dead. Most of them were civilians who had nothing to do with the fighting, and to pay for all of it, governments created things we still deal with today. Paper money, income tax, national debt at a scale that had never existed before. Military spending as a percentage of a country's economy has never come close to World War II levels since, and if it ever does again, it probably means something has gone very, very wrong. Antimatter. Every particle in the universe has an opposite version of itself, called an antiparticle. When a particle meets its antiparticle, they destroy each other and release energy. A single gram of antimatter touching a gram of regular matter would release more energy than 3 atomic bombs. It is, in theory, the most powerful energy source that exists. The problem is making it. A banana naturally produces 1 particle of antimatter every 75 minutes through a process called radioactive decay. But that particle only exists for 25 picoseconds. That is roughly 1/1000th of the time it takes you to blink. If you had 1 banana for every human being who has ever lived, all of them producing antimatter at the same time, you would still have to wait 97 times the entire age of the universe to collect just 1 gram. The only way to make a meaningful amount is to fire particles at nearly the speed of light into a metal rod and catch what comes out in a magnetic trap. There is one facility on Earth that does this. In its entire existence, it has made less than 10 billionths of a gram, enough to power a light bulb for about 4 hours. NASA estimates that producing a single gram would cost $62.5 trillion, making it by far the most expensive substance that exists. The universe. If you could put a price on the Earth based on its metals, its water, its livable land, the number comes to around $5 quadrillion. But the Earth is just one rock. Out in space, there are asteroids made almost entirely of gold and platinum, worth more money than has ever existed on Earth. The Sun, which is just a ball of burning gas, is worth more than all of those asteroids combined. And there are hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy, and hundreds of billions of galaxies in the observable universe, each one filled with more matter, more energy, and more value than the human mind can process. The universe contains an infinite amount of wealth, and all of it, every planet, every star, every atom was free.